Okay, so here we are again today with another episode of our Women in Electronics podcast series with our leader and highlight today, Jens Gamperl. Said that hopefully okay. How are you doing?
Perfect.
Jens?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Oh my goodness, I am so excited. It's been hard aligning the schedules, and we have you here before you're off on another adventure. So thank you for
Yes.
taking the time.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Jackie.
Okay. Well, I definitely have a lot to talk to you about, Jens. But one of the things I always ask people, because I'm always so interested, how did people get into this industry? Was this intentional? Tell us your story. And first of all, introducing you as the founder and CEO of Sourceability. Let's talk first about how you got here and kind of what led to this point in your journey.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, actually, I had Tuesday on August 1st my 40th work anniversary, which means like I'm kind of a dinosaur already. I started 40 years ago in Germany on an apprenticeship, which is a different kind of education. My dad was a school teacher and a principal. That made me really sick of schooling, so I took the first exit after high school, and I did a 3 years apprenticeship for back then a computer company that was engaged in personal computers, and that was something pretty new in 1983. We had the first personal computer from IBM, I guess, coming to the market around this time. And yeah, that's how I got in the IT industry. And since electronic components are a portion of it, I would say I never left the industry. I simply just switched kind of from the IT side more to the component side around 2000. And now 23 years in the electronic components industry. And I guess whoever is that long in the industry never will get lost.
True. And it's kind of like once you get into this industry, it's almost like you can't get out, because one thing I've learned is the relationships are so, you establish these relationships, and something about our industry is just, it's really built a lot on relationships. So it's just very endearing, and the innovation. So it seems like what attracted you from the beginning was the innovation. That seems to be something that maybe kept you going and excited.
I remember the personal computer, when I visited my first customer, I guess it was in 84, 85. It was a customer, IBM mainframe customer. So what they did, they just put on the huge mainframe, they always put terminals on there. And then we said, why don't you connect a computer so you have the intelligence in the computer? And one of the IT guys back said, look, there's no future for personal computers because we will have connected everything to a central system. And I was curious about that. And I think if you see how computers develop, then how cell phones developed, how the whole technology developed, I think this is something for someone who is interested in new technology. He's exactly right in our industry.
I love that. And, I was in the rep world for a long time. And what excited me, I was not an engineer, but I had so many amazing mentors who taught me and showed me. And actually my customers were my biggest mentors. And I'd go to them and say, I don't understand. How does this work? How does that work? And, it ended up to be super exciting, because when you're helping to design in something to this product and then you see it go to market, it's super exciting. I loved that part of what I was doing.
And I do. And look, in the last 18 months, there was a lot of talk about the automotive industry. We are going from conventional vehicles to electronic vehicles to autonomous driving. If you just think about, when I started, I did my driver license in 1983. We had a shift stick in Germany only, and now you're sitting. I was in Phoenix, and I saw all these autonomous taxis. It's weird. You're sitting in a car, next to you is a car pulling up to the traffic light, and there's just a guest in the past and no driver.
Oh, shocking. I didn't know that was happening right now.
It does. It happens in San Francisco, in Phoenix. There's some of the cities. It's really interesting to see that.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so if we're talking about your journey in this industry. And you're the founder and CEO of this amazing organization called Sourceability that we're so blessed to be aligned
Thank
with.
you.
So tell me about that. Tell me what Sourceability does specifically. How is it that your organization is linked in with the industry? What services are you providing? And what are your thoughts for the future?
Yeah, when I started the company, or when I decided to start my own company, the idea really was that I thought there's a lot of potential in developing technology in our industry. I used to work in distribution since a long time, and especially the quoting was kind of what kicked me off. It's like quoting always takes days, weeks sometimes, yeah, to get a quote, to provide a quote, and to pull the order. And I thought there should be a good opportunity to automate. So when I started the company, the idea was, okay, we work as a distribution company on one hand, but we push more for automating certain processes in that we have in our day-to-day business. And the first one was developing a marketplace. We haven't had a real marketplace that is transactional, where you just go and you to a website, you have 4,000, 5,000 suppliers, you build a cart and you check out from different suppliers. And when we went live in 2018, that was really interesting, because I thought within a year or 2 years there will be more marketplaces in the Western world, especially. And I haven't seen a real one in 5 years. So we are 5 years on the market now, and there's no really true second marketplace. What was interesting is that when we were so excited to introduce the marketplace, we had a large customer on Electronica 2018 in Munich sitting on our booth, and he said, "Man, Jens, I have more than 500 buyers. That's really exciting. But I want to tell you, I cannot send my buyers to a website to do a purchase transaction. What I want is all that data and all that information and transactionable in my system." So what we learned pretty quick is that people really like to work in their systems, in their environments, but they like the information that we have and they like to do the transaction. So what we are doing now is the next step, and this is our main focus right now, is the integration of our intelligence and of our marketplaces and our tools into customer systems.
Interesting. I love that. And that is such a need in our industry, because it does seem like people feel more comfortable with all the data and privacy and all the things we talk about, and just they feel more comfortable having that in their system. Okay, so I'm going to actually ask you then, since we're talking about this, we have seen that digital shift in our industry, so that you being here right now in this organization, you're starting this in 2018, that's a visionary. That's somebody who's going, okay, I see a need and I'm going to fill a need. There's actually a bigger perspective there, though. What do you see as more of the greater need in the industry as we incorporate more digital, that's not going away, into our processes in this channel and how we operate?
Yeah, unfortunately, I would say we have very little standards if we talk how we quote. And it's interesting, from a manufacturer to a distributor, from a distributor to EMS customer, or from a to an OEM customer. Everyone has a different process. They have different processes. They're using different tools. Yeah, some are still working. I always kid. Some of the Japanese companies still send quotes on PDF. Yeah, others using Excel. Others using a quoting system, a software that they might have acquired or developed over the years. So there are no standards. And I think with the pace of technology, someone at a certain point will establish a system, if it's a quoting system or a system that monitors transactions. Yeah. That we will have a standard somewhere, maybe in 3 years, on 5 years, where we say, okay, this was the company that was able to set a standard, and everyone is then using it for quoting, for absorbing technical information, for absorbing market information, and then doing the transaction.
So Let me understand what you're saying real quick for a lot of people listening. I'm computing all of this because typically in our industry, you go through a distributor for this and you go to a manufacturer for that. So are you saying a standard where the end user could see at all times or quote the whole picture of
I,
everything going on?
I think that's where we're going. Yeah, I think that's where we're going. And I think it's necessary. If you see the
You too.
number of customers that we have, if you see the numbers of suppliers and in between the distribution network, yeah, there has to be at a certain point a visibility. It was for many years really protective.
Yes.
And it started with the manufacturers because of price differences, of different priorities of customers. I think somewhere in the process that will go away. I've seen that in the IT industry, where I spent the first 17 years of my career, where pricing, if it was from companies like Microsoft or HP or whatever, pricing really became aligned. There was not so much price difference, and then everyone was willing to work on transparency. And if you look at on the other hand, in the IT industry, there's only, I would say, really two large distributors that have survived. It's Ingram and it's Tech Data, and they're working on very slim margins, and everything is very transparent.
Well, I think that is really a good point. And we had been talking about this before. It's supporting the customer. So what you're describing is like giving the customer the visibility that they haven't traditionally had. We allow them a certain amount, but not everything that they might need for their business, right? So what are they doing? Are they going to outside sources? Who are the end users now going to help get all the information they need?
It was kind of shocking. I recently visited a Gartner supply chain summit in Orlando. Yeah, and there were, I don't know, hundreds, thousands of companies and participants. And what I realized is that if you look, our customers, the Fortune 500, most of them are customers of our industry. They engaged consulting companies like PwC, like EY, Anderson Consulting. They engage these companies to help them to fix the issues in the supply chain. And a lot of issues were caused by manufacturing of electronic products. And I was really wondering why our customers would engage with consulting companies on a really high level. Most of this gets initiated on a C level, yeah, and then triggers down.
Yep.
And we, as the experts, in our industry, we have less engagement with the customers or even with these consulting companies. I found that really interesting. I had a few meetings in the last 8 weeks with companies that consult other companies, and they are very interested. They didn't know that digital products that they can use exist. Yeah, and I'm really excited about this opportunity, because that is a step where you have 800,000, 2,000 salespeople selling supply chain solutions now get the attention of what's possible in the electronic component industry.
Well, it just like breaks my heart because our customers are now having to go outside of our industry to get help how to operate in the industry. Super important message for a lot of our industry people listening to, that we need to be the ones providing these solutions, and we have it all at our disposal as it is. We have it all right here.
And I think the question is, why did it all happen? Yeah, I think the pandemic triggered something on the supply and demand side, that there was a shift. Yeah, and all of a sudden we had a high demand. We did not have the supply. We ended up in shortages. And what every good Fortune 500 company does, first thing they have issues in the supply chain, they hire a consultant. They did not. Yes, I know there were a lot of calls from CEOs of Fortune 500 companies to manufacturers, to distribution, putting pressure. Yeah, but that was because something was created within 6 months or 9 months, and all of a sudden everyone got desperate. Now they know there might be an issue. We might see something like this again. We might not. but everyone knows there is a risk. There has to be a risk assessment. Yeah, so they need data to assess their risks, and they have to understand how they can create visibility and transparency in their systems, in the systems that they use. If it's their ERP system, their PLM system, whatever it is, they want to have the data in their systems so they can assess the risk of designing in a product, going to market. What's my supply chain risk? Yeah, if I have production, if I go from 100,000 a month to 500,000 a month, so all that stuff. And the only way really to provide this data is electronically, and somewhere it has to be collected and be delivered to the customers.
My goodness. I think what you just described, it's the next stage of innovation in our industry, because if we don't provide that, we are in essence blocking a lot of end user innovation, because if they can't assess their risks and they can't see full visibility of everything available to them, it's actually a detriment. So I agree with you. I think the next step in the industry is some type of collective ERP or whatever we decide to do.
I think we at a certain point there will be a standard on how we deliver information and product to the customers. Don't get me wrong. I think we have a lot of very interesting and innovative companies in our industry. But if you look at the board and your key products, yeah, are supplied and they have transparency on your key products, but you don't have it on the remaining on some of the passives, whatever. Yeah. Without them, there's no board. So you need to have the information from all the suppliers, and someone has to create that. And I think for us as a young company, yeah, and focusing on this digitalization, trying to create this transparency and provide the tools to our industry, this is what I'm really excited about, that we have an opportunity that is unique for our industry.
Oh, I love that. And that actually segues very well into my next question for you, because what you described is a very visionary, innovative way of thinking, having that broader picture. What is going to take us there, right? And wherever we sit in the industry, whatever advancements we're trying to make, how are we educating up the next generation of leaders, the next people that will be leading this industry? Because thankfully, as we've talked before, I mean, I think of COVID and how amazing it was that we had a lot of our seasoned leaders who just knew the industry, knew how to work with each other, thank goodness for that. As we look to go into the future and train up our next generation of leaders, what do you think about that? How do you do that in your organization? What does the makeup look like for you? And how are you managing this whole process of our next pipeline?
Yeah, I can talk about how we did it or how we do it. And I think maybe we are a little fortunate, because I think with 58 for most of our employees, I might be still one of the oldest. So we have a pretty young organization. But let me tell you something. When COVID hit, even the seniors in our industry got familiar with Zoom, with Teams. Everyone started using technology, and I think a lot of people learned that this has an upside. Yeah, there's a downside, and I'll tell you, I miss the office. Yeah, I'm in certain areas we are back to the office. In certain areas we are not. I think we should be back to the office at least 2 or 3 days a week, so we can engage with each other. Something got lost. At the end of the day, what it required and what it requires in the future is trust. You got to trust the choice of the people that you hired, that your choice was right. And then you have to empower them, and you have to let them mistakes. I remember myself now 40 years in business. I made a lot of mistakes, but I think very rarely, if ever, I made the same mistake twice. So you learn from these experiences, and our leaders can really coach and teach their people, how to avoid mistakes. So if you invest in training, if you invest in coaching, and you use your talent and you develop it, I think in an industry like ours that will continue to grow, this is an opportunity. And look, I haven't met. I understand that we have a lot of senior leaders. I know many of them, but I haven't met one who's not willing, yeah, to also bank on the next generation, yeah, and help them to develop. So yes, I think probably the network that develop, it's like a family. You mentioned that before. You know, we are like a family. Everyone knows each other. Nobody's dropping out of the industry, but we have a lot of good talent, and I trust and believe in our leaders that we develop the next generation to take over.
I love that too. And you give off such a good positive attitude. That's what I really enjoy about you as a leader. And I really think that you said it to me prior, that it's the job of the leader to inspire and to motivate. And I love that you could just feel it from you. I feel like young people would probably enjoy working for you. Do you have a lot of young people at your organization? How is this looking, the makeup?
Yeah, I look, we have a lot of young people, and the interesting part is, so we started something when we developed the platform in 15, 16. All of a sudden, I had to sit there with software developers, with designers, software design engineers, and they were talking about stuff I had no idea about. The only thing was I asked my questions and they answered the questions, so I had to trust them back then. I learned a lot in the process, and of course, we made wrong decisions, yeah. But at the end of the day, you let them go. I hired the people, so they tell me what to do to become a digital company, because I didn't know it from a technical point of view. So I learned a lot, and I think it paid off. And if you look in that environment, it's really interesting. I think we are, I don't know, that most of the people are somewhere in the 30s, and they're really smart people, much smarter than me. Yeah.
Okay. I love that. Well, okay. So now, having that preface, okay, let's talk about this. So you tend to be more forward thinking and more progressive thinking just in your mentality. And so we were able to fortunately form a relationship, us and, women electronics and sourceability. Thankfully, we're very grateful for that. But this is your business, right? This isn't just like, oh, I'm just going to invest in whatever because I feel like I'm going to be a charitable person. So, why is it that you, as a male leader in the industry, a business owner, leading a ton of people and responsible to stakeholders, why is it that you felt it was important to invest with women in electronics?
Look, first of all, in my 40 years, I had really a good experience always when I worked together with women. Yeah, and when I had the choice, I knew women, and back also in Europe, yeah, were always committed. Yeah, and they were passionate about what they're doing, and I had only good experience. And for me, it really didn't make a difference if I had the right person for a job and it was women. I hired her, and I'll tell you, I had probably less false hires or wrong hires on the women's side than I had on the men's side. So I think it's important also that at a certain point, everyone recognizes if you're doing the same job, you should make the same money. And there's a lot of things that I'm as a leader, I want to have something delivered, and that has a price tag. And I don't really care if it's a man or a woman or whoever. Yeah, so I think that is something you have to have in the mindset. It's maybe also an educational point of view that you have to respect any of your employees and their capabilities. And I don't judge on gender. I judge on performance. It's a business, yeah. And I trust the people that work for the company. And look, we just had our 8th anniversary. We have 400 people in the company. We have a lot of women in leadership roles in Asia, in Europe, in the US, and they got us together with the men where we are today. So it's a teamwork.
Mm, I love that a lot. And really, I also wanted to ask you, because I know these interviews go so fast. We're getting to time, but I wanted to ask you one or two more questions and just
Sure.
ask you, how do you steer this ship? So, the decisions that you make as a leader. I mean, you're flying around the world. You have a lot going on, and not all of it is easy. So people tend to look at leadership as, oh, you're in charge and you get to call the shots. It is not an easy road to be a leader, especially in today's day and age. So I just wanted to talk to you about that. What is your thought about leadership? And then how do you steer your ship when you have to make those really hard decisions? What is it you pull from to make those decisions?
Yeah, if you have to do tough decisions, you always try to do it for that it's beneficial for the company. It's not about individuals, and in this case, it's about the company. There's a responsible for 400 people, and every decision we have to make has to fit the majority of the people, and has to be good for the company. And on the other hand, I think yes, I have to make a lot of decisions, but I think there's much more decisions done on a daily basis that I'm not even involved in, yeah, where people take responsibility and they make decisions, and I encourage that, because this is exactly, yeah, what develops you. This is the experience you build, that you find out if you made a good decision or not. Usually, most of the times, you realize if a decision was good or not after you made the decision. Very few times already you make a decision that will be a good decision. There are some of them. So, but then you learn from that. And I think for myself, I always tell my people, when we have discussions and teams or individuals are not coming to a conclusion and to a decision, say, look, if you guys come to me, I make a decision. But then you have to accept the decision, and even more important, not only accept the decision, you have to stand behind the decision, even if it's not what you expect it to be. So if you're not able to make a decision with your colleagues, with your customers, with suppliers, with whoever, and I get involved and I say, okay, I think that's how we should do it, then everyone has to accept it and has to stand behind it. And I think that is where I'm fortunate that I do not get too many decisions, because there's always a risk that I make a decision that people would have done different in our organization.
Okay, so it definitely comes back to the trust that you talked about. And I think what you said is so critical, because I would say from where we sit at Women in Electronics and thinking, talking to different people, why people leave their organizations, people get very protective over decisions, and maybe somebody overstepped them, or whatever it is, but it all comes down to trust. And I think it loops back to what you said about what's in the best interest of the organization. And if you hire the right people with the right values, and then they trust you as a leader, they're not going to get so uptight when you made a decision that maybe they wouldn't have wanted, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what it is. And it's the other way around. Sometimes people, there are things that I give down and say, guys, you got to make a decision. And sometimes they make decisions that I think I would have done it different myself. Let them do that.
Yes.
The most important is, if you want to explore a new territory, you don't know where you go. So, you have to learn a lot on that journey. And I think this is something I totally understand. I moved my family in 2008 from Germany to Southern California, and we didn't really know what to expect, and we made the decision. So now, 15 years later, I can say, okay, it was a fantastic decision. Yeah, it could have gone the other way. And my wife trusted me. My son, he was not happy. He trusted me. So at a certain point, you have to make a decision. You have to trust that the decision is right. And if the decision was not what you've expected, then you have to reiterate, or you just go on and you change. You can change the future. It's hard to change the past.
It's the superpowers of men and women, but men tend to do really well with making decisions and moving on and not looking back. It's like, I made the best decision I could at the time, and I'm not going to ruminate about it and change my mind a million times. And so I do think that that's an area men have a lot of strengths. I think with women, we tend to consider so many factors, right? And that can be a really good thing, but it just takes longer to make those decisions and to not regret our decisions.
Isn't it that the women really try to evaluate everything and try to make the perfect decision?
Yes.
I'll tell you something. This is what I definitely think. you should not go for the most perfect decision. You should go for the most reasonable or the most obvious, and then you develop. There's always a development. Women, I know, yeah, they always want to be perfect, and
Yes,
and
I know.
that is, it's hard to be perfect. And I think this is where I had a lot of good exchange with women also in our company, where I said, just try it. Look, even if you're not sure it's perfect, try. It might be better than option B.
Yes, and I love that you gave that flexibility, because I think as women, we don't hop in a lot of times to things that would be really good for us because of fear, or because we don't know all the answers, because women tend to not be as comfortable of learning as we go. And so that's an area for men and women to come together, for men to consider a lot of the factors at the table, but then for women to understand you're not going to always have it perfect and right and have all the information. You've got to roll.
Yeah.
You just got to go.
But we have a lot of women also in leading in our industry. Yeah,
Yes.
I think yesterday I saw Lisa Su from AMD on CNBC, and then you look at other industry. If you watch, like I watch CNBC quite a
Yep.
lot. A lot of women on the financial side, analysts, wealth management advisors. So there's a lot of knowledge. They feel confident. You got to expect from a woman and a man that if they make decisions, they have to be confident and they should know what they're talking about. Yeah. And I think it was Rockefeller once said, you better do a wrong decision than no decision. So I think you just simply have to have also the self-confidence. Yeah. Women or men, that if you're pretty sure, if you think what you're doing is right, yeah, and you're doing it for the company and for the team, then go for it.
Go for it. Oh my goodness. I love that message. Okay. So my very last question, and I haven't had a chance to talk to you about it ahead of time, but I'm throw this out there. Um, I like to get to the bottom of the leaders and their humanity, because I think as we move forward, we're really stewarding people more than anything, and impacting lives. If you think of everyone you're employing, and you think of your own family and your stakeholders, and at the end of the day, it comes down to the human component. It really does. And so I would like to know, if you think of, what is it that drives you, or like, what is it in your soul that makes you really happy, like just as a person? And maybe what are those things that make you really cry in your soul, that drive you to make this world a better place? Like, what are those things for you?
Yeah, if you, I can only talk about what I've done or what we have done. If you look into sourceability, you'll find a lot of people that are with me, either in the second or even in the third company. A lot of young people, men and women, that I met when they were singles, and now they are moms and dads, and they have 2 or 3 kids, and it's beautiful. You still get the calls on Christmas, on my birthday. My birthday was last week, so I got, I don't know, 150 calls, and 80 were from the
Aw,
company.
so
And
nice.
there's a personal relationship, and there is a responsibility. And I'll tell you something, and that's a really sad story. In end of May, we lost Mike England, our senior VP of quality and logistics, and he actually was the first employee in the company. When him and we worked together in the previous company, and back then he said, if you ever start your own company, I want to join you. And him and his girlfriend and his cat and me and my wife and our dog, we drove in 2 cars from Southern California to Miami. We lived together for a few months, and I had to go to his funeral in Indiana. And yeah, and all of a sudden, what you have is the memories, and we only had good memories. And it was so sad that at a certain point, this life ends. And for him, it ended in a minute. It was not. He was on Memorial Day. He was out fishing, and next morning, 5 o'clock, he died. So, 60 years old. And I think the only thing that when I was there, and it was an open casket, and I said, look, I talked to him and said, Mike, at the end of the day, if we had good times and if we look back and if we see us again, we would do exactly the same. And I think this is where I look. If I meet people today, whoever it is, after 10 years, 20 years, or whenever I meet them again, and they say, hey, we would do it exactly the same way, this is something I'm really proud of. And I think this is what in our company, the culture, I'm traveling tomorrow to Singapore. I will see our teams in Singapore. There are people who have been there from day one, and it's like family. And I think this is more important. It's a good business. It's always a business. Yeah, we want to generate money. We want to be successful. On the other hand, when we see us, we are happy to be together and we surround us with ourselves even after work. And I think this is what I always looked for in my life. And after 40 years in business, I would say this is one of my accomplishments, that I was able to create teams that really like to spend time together.
Oh my gosh. So on that note, I love that answer because it's all about people and relationships. And this is such a relationship driven industry. And so I love that you said that. And really, just have really enjoyed our time together. I know you're so busy traveling around the world. So taking the time out has meant a lot. And I really appreciate that and very much enjoyed this time with you.
So did I, Jackie. Thank you.
And you have a good day and safe travels to you.
Thanks, Jackie. Be safe.